I hope to fast forward, I don't know, 10 years, et cetera, be as successful as Steve. So following Steve, we already talked here this evening that I'd like to get some mentoring from a fellow Zip. I guess I consider myself a Zip now, being at the university 22 years. So I'm going to kind of walk you through my sort of innovation journey here. It's relative to the company and relative to scaling out to everyone. We are relatively new. What I'm going to talk about tonight, we just actually launched the application a little over 4 weeks ago. So it can't be much greener than that. The vision, if you will, for the company is we want to provide exceptional drinking water for everyone, everywhere. So those of you that are texting, emailing this evening, taking a break or whatever, focus in. This directly impacts you, and you can take away something tonight that hopefully you can see about understanding more about water quality and improving the water quality that you actually drink. So with that, if you look at, these are some of the recent headlines. These are literally within the last month. Some of them we know about Flint, lead issues, Sebring, Ohio. This was an article just on November 18th about concern about lead levels in the schools in Cleveland. About a month ago, there was this Aaron Brockovich talking again about chromium-6 being in the water of more than 200 million Americans. So lots of headlines about water quality, and yet when we see these, I think that we look at water and we're like, if it smells okay, it tastes okay, it must be okay, right? We're just kind of out of sight, out of mind. In fact, when we know that there are these things actually contained in our water. On a more personal level, I've got a picture of when I moved to Ohio in 1995. This was my Cocker Spaniel, Jonesy, who of course only consumes tap water, and within about 3.5 years was riddled with cancer. And actually was my first, and we had to put him down, it was my first sort of awareness that actually, believe it or not, even though I was a formerly trained civil engineer in water treatment, about the role of carcinogens and perhaps their potential impact. So my company is Fontes Blue, and we are creating innovative solutions to improve drinking water quality. Tonight I'm actually going to talk about the mobile application, which is H2 Blue, which is again what I said that we just launched a little bit over a month ago. For several years, the company again was started in 2011. Most of our behind-the-scenes product development has been in decision support software, artificial intelligence, algorithms to help water treatment plants improve their water quality. So that's fantastic, but as you'll see, no matter how good of a job we do at these drinking water plants, it's still technically impossible for them to remove everything in the water before it arrives to your tap. So trying to keep in line with the innovation for many, our focus is on the USA. These are some of the numbers relative to, poverty level. There still are greater than 40 million Americans, right, that are below the poverty level. We wanted to create something that at least all people that have a mobile phone could access this information and access the resources that we could provide. To give you an idea of the scope of the problem, so besides looking at the individuals, looking at water plants and public water systems, this is straight from US EPA's website. There are greater than about 50,000 water systems. The level of those that have actually had enforcement against them has been relatively consistent, a little bit below 5,000 of those systems, which you could say is 10%-ish. But what's a little more disturbing is consistently over 25,000 have some type of informal enforcement. Okay, well, informal enforcement still means that there's a risk to the public. It's just not severe enough that they must notify you. So the scope of, even in good old United States of America, relative to what's going on with treatment plants and the tap water that arrives at your house is pretty significant. So now I have to put on my professor hat. Okay, so this is your 5-minute lesson on drinking water quality. We'll call it Drinking Water Quality 101. And I've argued with, we had some funding to create middle school modules for science and education teachers to teach their students about water. And I think most of the time when we think about water, we think about the watershed or the water source. What's going into Lake Erie, what's happening with stormwater runoff, those kinds of things. And that's extremely important. The whole Lake Erie, algal bloom, trying to reduce nutrients getting into the lake, extremely important, okay? But that's kind of how most of us think about water. Well, once you have the water source or watershed, you have a treatment plant. Treatment plant has their processes to improve the water quality, and then they have to send it off into a distribution system. I graduated as a civil engineer, undergrad, and if you would have asked me how does the water arrive at my shower, I would have done a horrible job telling you. So I think we just think this water magically arrives at our house. It's very complicated treatment plant, and then this into the distribution system. The key point about this is that we add disinfectant at the water plant, which in Ohio is almost universally chlorine as the disinfectant, to prevent waterborne disease, okay? So remember that in a few minutes, but we must disinfect. We set it at a high enough dose so that it travels throughout the distribution system. It can maintain enough of a residual to protect against waterborne disease. So here's the rub. We put in this chlorine to protect us against waterborne disease, but there's a very bad side effect of this. So we put the chlorine in, it decays, it goes away in the distribution system, but what it reacts with is that we have leaf decay or things that naturally decay and dissolve into the water. The treatment plant can't reduce all of those as it goes through the treatment process. So we have some of this dissolved organic matter and leaf matter, which we can drink, won't hurt us. We have chlorine in water. If we had it in pure water, we could drink that. That would be fine. But when we mix the two together and let the reaction occur, we form known carcinogens. Okay? So not suspected carcinogens, known carcinogens. Okay? This is from US EPA's website, just to dig into, it is actually regulated, and those disinfection byproducts are narrowed into two classes. One is called HA5, and the other is called TTHMs, or total trihalomethanes. These are about 9 different compounds that are measured on a quarterly basis in these distribution systems at different locations throughout the system. Again, want to emphasize that these are known carcinogens, okay? So you ask yourself, what's in your water? And so this is where most people, if I ask them what a consumer confidence report is or water quality report, systems have gotten fancier about nice big colors and things so that most people now recognize them. Some systems like to keep it in black and white and hide it at the end of a bill so you don't read the thing, but most of you probably have never really bothered to read your consumer confidence report. There's some good reasons for that, but most often it's really not easy to interpret or understand. These are snapshots from Columbus, Ohio's water quality report. Again, very nice images, water for living, give you an idea that they're definitely concerned about your health. And then they give you a table like this, and you need somebody with a PhD to figure out and tell you what's in the table. So they've actually looked at the literacy required to read most consumer confidence reports, and it is at the level of what it would take to read a technical article. So all of these community water systems must provide this on an annual basis. It's based on the calendar year in which the data was collected, and it's submitted by July 1st of the following year. So if you received a consumer confidence report in 2016, it was based on 2015's data, but at least gives you an idea of all the different things that were monitored and the different levels that were found. I know you can't read it, but the THM and HA levels are on here for those known carcinogens, again, to get an idea of what those concentrations were. So taking off my professor hat and going back to, this was the opportunity or looking at if it's not technically feasible for a water plant to prevent DBPs, disinfection byproducts, from forming and arriving at your tap, what is the solution for the consumer? Okay, well, I think it's or not most, over about 40% of households now have refrigerator filters. And so we know that point of use treatment is the only solution. So those of you that have pay the water bills, right, know that they're, especially in Akron, with all the stormwater, which is separate again from a drinking water issue, all the stormwater issues, the water bills have gone up quite a bit. Regardless of how much infrastructure we put in at a water plant, it's just technically not feasible or cost effective to invest at the water plant. It's much more cost effective to rely on point of use treatment. So then the question becomes, well, what do I use? Okay, do I buy an expensive reverse osmosis system? Do I buy a faucet filter, thermos, pitcher, et cetera? Not enough time to talk about those details tonight, but the reality is if you choose wisely, for about $100 to $200 a year, you can virtually reduce all of the disinfection byproducts, lead, et cetera, that you consume in your drinking water. So a couple of minutes then about the mobile phone application. And so we observed lack of knowledge about the carcinogens being in the water. We looked at the complicated aspects of a consumer confidence report, and we thought, we know too there's way too many choices relative to filters and point of use treatment, and we tried to create a platform that could educate and then also provide some solutions to that information. So there's really 4 features to the mobile phone application. I won't read through all of it, but you can find that at our website. It's currently just on the iPhone platform. The education topics and the filter links and information are all available on the website. But what was really sort of innovative here was, besides, of course, the mobile phone application, we know that it was 89% in the world, I don't know what the number is in the United States, that have access to a mobile phone, is that we want to have something that you could monitor this or get this information directly to you rather than having to rely on this once a year report that you may or may not see, in the mail. So anybody, once you sign up, that's on a public water system. So if you're on a private well, this is totally different. But if you're on a public water system, what we've done is taken those values that are in the consumer confidence report and converted them into a score, and then we actually adjust that score to your household. So not everybody in Akron even has the same score because these disinfection byproducts form as they go into the system. So there's a spatial adjustment to this as well. So we've tried to come up with something to give an idea or frame of reference that may mean something to people. We also have provided the link to the CCRs. We also have some education topics, and again, we also have some links to different filters. Some screenshots of how this looks. You have a baseline score between 0 and 100. This is trying to get people to move away from, most of the water industry likes to just talk about compliance. We're in compliance, that's good, leave us alone. What I'm saying is I don't think that's good enough. If we want to actually improve the drinking water quality for everybody, we need to push for even just beyond compliance. So this is my disruptive way, if you will, of beginning to score water plants. I can assure you, while many of them are my customers for the decision support software, they're not very attuned with this idea of scoring their drinking water quality. So this is one thing that's definitely become disruptive. After you add a filter, the score will improve, and then over time, based on, depending on your consumption rate, et cetera, that score will go down back towards the baseline score. So my final slide is that, so we created this platform that can access everybody, at least in the US, make these links, where we're trying to go with this in the future. So this is our first version, is that we're trying to actually create a cost calculator so that you can plug in, if I buy a refrigerator filter instead of a thermos, et cetera, how you can get the most cost-effective treatment for your drinking water. We're also looking at these filters do not all behave the same depending on the water source. So you put the same refrigerator filter and it has water from Akron or it has water from Cleveland, it will not behave the same. It will actually be consumed faster in one city's water system versus the other. So those little green lights and yellow lights and all those silly systems that tell you when to change the filter are virtually, useless relative to begin, because you don't know when you have breakthrough through those filters. So we're working on that. We're also excited about, we now have the ability to, this is all static information relative to that score, is that water plants can update their information on a more frequent basis and make that score dynamic, and so that platform exists. And then last but not least, outside the USA, whether it's India and arsenic contaminated sources, et cetera, things we could identify safe drinking water spots, et cetera, rather than just how to improve the drinking water, but again, because of this mobile phone access. So, with that, I thank you for your time. So, any quick question? Oh. So, excellent questions, the business model. So the software for the water plant is all software as a service, subscription, that kind of thing. Right now, the business model, we have two revenue streams from this. One is to charge the city because it becomes a platform to also communicate this score, but we're a third-party validator of that score, so you can believe, the water quality score. And then also, eventually, different affiliate income streams off of the filter. So we want to remain filter agnostic, right? Not just be Brita, Pure, et cetera. They have to be certified filters, but yeah, excellent question. All right, thank you. Oh, is another? I'm sorry. What's that? Yeah, excellent question. So I said go to the website, right? But the main thing there is that you want to make sure that it's certified. So we actually have a general link. Right now, everything is going to Amazon because Amazon costs competitive even more than Home Depot or Lowe's. And it will take you into the certified filter range thing. And then as long as you're certified right now, that's the easy answer. The next would be, well, which is more cost effective, because they have different, like one may treat 500 gallons, one may treat 300 gallons. So we haven't put that information out yet. We just made sure that it's certified.